Hello, my name is Brett Reef, and this is my Session 2 presentation. Today I'll be looking at cultural perceptions, which includes web-based cognition, how culture relates to perceptions, do perceptions vary across cultures, the comparison between American and Chinese culture, what surprised me during this research, and it changed my perceptions. This quote here to the right, your perception of me is a reflection of you. My reaction to you is an awareness of me. I believe sums up the whole idea of initial reactions and perceptions of people when we meet. Our perception is created from how we are brought up, our backgrounds, our experiences. And our reaction, or another person's reaction, is their reaction to the stimulus that we provide during that interaction. So, web based social cognition basically centers around what happens when a person goes online and whether or not they find that interaction pleasing. Research has shown that people search the websites for certain goals. And like the interaction with human beings, the same stimulus is used to tell whether or not a person's perception is positive or not. We look at whether or not things are physically or visually appealing. Are they easy to navigate? Do they um, satisfy the goal that we have when looking at the website or whatever we are searching for, whether it's a dating website or whether we're looking for cars or clothing or whatever it may be? The same stimulus is expected in that regard as in a social environment. If we look at this last post here, rather than starting from a stimulus in the environment, the starting point is inside me and concerns my goals. So when we go onto a website, we have that specific goal and we look for something that is pleasing and satisfies that goal. And it's the same thing as when we have interactions or conversations with people for the first time. How does culture relate to perceptions? All of our cultures and individuals grown up in a culture are raised in a certain manner and have certain beliefs, such as making eye contact with somebody when you talk, not invading personal space, or the tone or volume in which we speak. And as we see here in this picture, this is at an international airport. We have individuals holding out their hand to shake hands, a gentleman bowing out of respect. We see a woman leaning into personal space, and the gentleman's response being that the person is invading, and the person is backing off, and the woman thinking that he is being defensive or unfriendly. So, depending on where we live and where we grow up, and the experiences that we've had in life, it completely alters our perceptions and also, therefore, changes how we respond to the stimulus that we see. This leads us into do perceptions vary across cultures? Very much so. As I've already stated, how we grow up and the experiences that we have changes how we see the world and how we expect to interact with other people. As we see in this picture, we have a gentleman whose legs are spread, he's sitting a casual way, versus another person who's sitting very structured and almost closed off. This picture shows how different cultures think certain things are okay and how certain things are proper, but if the other culture doesn't understand the other culture, then there could be complete miscommunications and lines crossed that the person didn't know was even happening. So how does American culture and Chinese culture pair up? Well, what we find in the American culture is that we are rather individualistic and we believe in individual power and individual goals, such as there's no real hierarchy. Whether you are in the lowest level of a company or the highest, everybody expects to be able to interact with each other. Whereas in the Chinese culture, the people who are lower do not expect to interact with their bosses. The Chinese culture is very unified around the group as a whole. They spend time chit chatting and learning about their families, about their um, other individuals' needs, goals, wants. Whereas Americans, we tend to be more straightforward. We are not about the whole. We talk about only what we need to talk about unless a person gets into our close knit family or friendship. Everyone else is kept as basically an associate. And this makes a big difference between Chinese and American culture because the Chinese culture tends to create more in depth friendships than the American culture. The Chinese culture also has heavy censorship, and especially of media and the internet, where the Americans see freedom of speech and access of information as a right. So the Chinese culture has less information at hand than the American culture, yet the American culture feels as if they have more power because of it. Another key piece here is when it comes to humility. The Chinese culture tries to save face and not try to win arguments or try to belittle a person, where the American culture tends to do whatever it needs possible to succeed and come out on top. Often, Chinese will step away from an argument where the Americans will continue on with it. So, what surprised me? The main thing that surprised me is the unification of the Chinese culture. They understand their culture, they believe their culture, and they stand by their culture 100%. They are completely integrated. Whereas here in America, we are more individualistic. And we are set on our own goals, where the Chinese are more set on everybody being successful instead of the individual. And lastly, has this changed my perception? To a degree, it has. When I thought of Chinese before, I knew about all the rules, regulations, and how confined they were. But through this research, I've been able to find out that with those restrictions, they have spent more time growing as a people and growing their network as a people and having more understanding of who everybody they come across is. They sit down and talk and build relationships in a different way than Americans do. So I think that this image here of the Americans on the left being more individualized and walking in a straight line compared to the Chinese where everybody is integrated together and clumped together as a people. So that is my presentation on perceptions of culture. Thank you for your time.